Should you buy an Xbox Elite wireless V2 controller? Here's what you need to know. What's up everybody, Brad here, and in my hand is the brand new wireless Elite V2 controller for Microsoft's Xbox One X gaming system, if you will. And the question everyone's going to want to know is it good? Should you buy it? And well, yeah, that's pretty much it. And so I've been using this thing for a little over a week now, and there's a couple takeaways and some real obvious things that if you're watching this video, you probably already know, right? Microsoft has taken the original Elite controller design, beefed it up a little bit, and then shipped the second generation. And so there's a couple things that you need to pay attention to because these are the key differentiators from the first generation. The first being, and this is my favorite feature, is that you can adjust the tension of the thumbstick. Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal unless you're really into first-person gaming, which I've played a lot of Apex Legends. I've also done some Forza and some other games. But what it allows you to do is what I did, I should say, is I jacked up the tension. Like I turned it really, really tight. And then in the game, I turned up the sensitivity in the game. Typically, that means that I would be overshooting people, like oversteering or whatever. But because you can control the tension here, it actually makes it a lot easier to control. And honestly gives me a bigger advantage because knowing that it's harder to move, but it's also, I'm adjusting for it in the game, gives me a wider span here of how quickly I can turn without overshooting people. It's one of the little things that makes this controller different. The other thing too that is quite nice about this update is that there's 3 controller profiles. And so depending on the game type I'm playing or the game that I'm playing, I actually have a couple different map settings to make that easier to make the transition. The previous generation only had 2. And of course you still have the paddles that connect into the back, and you also have the 3 stops now on the triggers. Previously it was only 2. I'm still going with the middle setting. The first one is just a little too short for my liking, and then the long one is, well, just like your standard Xbox controller. There are 2 big, well, I should say potentially 3 big downsides to this controller that you should be aware of before you plunk your money down. First off, it is kind of hard to keep clean, if I'm honest. I am generally babying my hardware and I don't go crazy with it. I don't throw it around, but there is a lot of dirt in the rubber pads and in the thumbsticks that's just kind of hard to get off. Like you rub it quite a bit and it just doesn't really remove, and it kind of stains it a little bit. Also, you're going to get oils from your fingers on the matte black finish, but that is actually quite easy to clean with a microfiber cloth, so that's not too big of an issue. The other big downside to this controller is that it has a sealed battery. Now, Microsoft is claiming 40 hours of battery life. I haven't gotten quite 40 hours of gaming in yet because that's a lot of gaming, but I have done about 20 or so, and it seems like 40 is probably about right. Now, what Microsoft does include, which is nice, and this thing has some heft to it, by the way, is a USB dock that you can just place on the controller, if I do it the correct way here, and then it just charges just like that. It's quite good. And what I've done is I just place this on my desk and then I can just drop it on there when I need to charge it. And there you go. But the downside there obviously is because it's a sealed battery. If this battery goes flat, you're out of luck. And the reason why I'm saying that's a potential downside is, while I'd like to think that Microsoft is going to put the best batteries and the best build materials in here, we don't quite know if that's the case, to be honest, because the other downside, which we don't know about, and there's no way to simulate this, unfortunately, is the rubber on the control on the grips here going to last? In the previous generation Elite controller, mine completely fell off, and it didn't take very long for that to show up. So I'm hoping that Microsoft has refined their formula and that the rubber grips are going to hold. The other issue with the primary Elite controllers, or the first generation, was the shoulder buttons kept breaking. And I did not personally have that issue, but I know people who did. So the longevity of this controller is, it's unknown. And that is a big deal at this point because this controller is $180. It's $180. Which is not cheap. If you buy the basic Xbox controller, you can roughly buy 3 of them for the price of one of these, which means, should you spend $180 on this controller? It's a great question. Let me qualify, because if you spend $180 on this controller, provided the battery holds up and provided the rubber grips hold their own, you will be exceptionally happy with this controller. It is the Mercedes S-Class, it is an Audi A8, it's a BMW 7 Series, it is a Tesla Model S. It is a fantastic controller, and it doesn't make me ever want to touch any other Xbox controller. Candidly, I really, really like this thing. And if you have $180, and that is not a lot of money to you, then you will be very happy with this. That being said, if you have an Xbox One S, and you're thinking about spending $180 on this, personally, I would put that money towards an Xbox One X rather than this controller. I think you'll get more mileage out of an Xbox One X than the Xbox Elite controller, because the standard controller is fantastic. And if you are happy with that standard controller, never touch this. Don't go in the store and look at it. Don't go to a friend's house who has one. Do not look at an Elite V2, because you will be happy and you will save yourself some money. But if you are willing to spend $180 and you're okay with the idea that this is hopefully refined and fixed and that Microsoft will treat you right if something does happen to it, you will be very, very happy with the Elite. I quite like this controller despite its flaws. It feels good. It has a good heft to it. So far, it has met every expectation that I have set out for it, minus being a little bit dirty, but that's not too big of a deal. It has Bluetooth, so it's going to work well with xCloud. I can't say it enough and as many times. You'll be happy with this controller if $180 isn't a barrier for you. And for a lot of people, myself included, $180 on a single controller, especially when you can go buy an Xbox One S for about the same price if you find it on, if you find one of those all digital editions on sale, roughly. I know it's not quite there yet. But that being said, guys, Microsoft just built a great controller. The only thing that's missing from this controller is a matching headset. I would love to see Microsoft take the Surface headphones and turn those into an Elite style headset. That would be the companion device to this that is missing. But yet Microsoft sells a pretty basic or entry-level headset. I'm a big headset gamer, and I believe that that does give you an advantage over just traditional speakers. So it needs a matching headset that connects directly to the Xbox One S or X or whatever console you're using. But that being said, guys, if you've been on the fence about this controller, I would go ahead and buy one if $180 doesn't make sense. But if you're truly undecided and you have an Xbox One S, I think I'd put that money towards an Xbox One X personally.